Yeah, you hear that rush of water into the sewer here, Cheryl. Believe it or not, it's a lot quieter than when we got here earlier this afternoon, and it's nothing compared to earlier this morning when this whole area was covered in water.
Nearly everyone I spoke with on this street said they heard the gunshots this morning. It was right as people were getting ready for work. She wanted to vote absentee, so a few weeks ago, her parents brought her absentee ballot request to the Board of Elections office right here. They handed it to someone inside. Your space at work might look something like mine. Certainly a good idea to go through and wipe down your keyboard and your mouse. And don't forget about your tablet and phone. Those can just be absolutely filthy. Let me walk you over here. We'll try not to get in the way of anyone bringing out food right here. But if you look inside, you can see some of what they're doing here. Where I'm standing would normally be a barn on this property. You look over here, though, and you can see it's been entirely moved to the back of the house right here, toppled and damaged all over the property. Also, different pieces of debris after this storm moved through, like this slat of wood. Happened here this evening. I'm talking dozens of people that are off behind the police line here at this intersection. Out of respect for them during this time, we're not going to show them over there, but I can tell you they have gathered on the other side of the police line as police continue what is, from what I'm looking at, going to be a lengthy investigation here tonight. Just to be able to get in the front door, you have to be buzzed in.
Hi, can I help you?
And that's far from the only thing. Once inside the building, too, chances are you're on camera. So many districts like Kettering have put in place new high-tech camera systems. Madison Bell left home on Sunday for a tanning appointment at this store right down the street, but her car turned up right over here in this church parking lot. Her mother told me this afternoon she fears something terrible has happened to her daughter, and now this evening these missing signs are all over town as part of an effort to bring Maddie home. Molly, he came here to the Dayton VA with a tailbone injury a few weeks ago, otherwise healthy. Now he's upstairs in one of those rooms having battled pneumonia, gone to the ICU, depressed and confused. His daughter can't be there with him, but says something needs to change.
He always wanted you to see that he can run backwards.
This video of 92-year-old Ken Townsend walking backwards in an airport.
Come forward.
Is from just a few weeks ago.
He can move very well.
The Army veteran who served in the Korean War had just gotten back from a trip to California and was on a chair doing housework when he fell. His daughter, Chris Orlacher, took him to the Dayton VA with a tailbone injury. X-rays showed he had a small fracture, but in severe pain, doctors decided to admit him. That's when Chris found out she could not go with him because of COVID-19 rules.
I just said, Dad, I can't go with you anymore. And he cried. And then I cried. The elevator door opened, and then they wheeled my dad on there, and I kind of waved, goodbye as those doors closed. And then I had to turn around and walk to my car. I think my legs felt like they weighed about 1 billion pounds.
Her biggest fear as she sat in the parking lot.
I knew what was going to happen to my dad.
After years as an ER nurse, she's seen older patients decline when family isn't there. Sure enough, she started to hear about the signs in her dad.
Anybody who would come into my dad's room, he would say, have you seen my daughter? Have you seen Chris? Is she out in the hall? He couldn't remember why I wasn't coming.
Over the last couple weeks, things have just gotten worse. Her dad became confused, grew lonely, then hopeless and depressed. He stopped eating, developed pneumonia, and was admitted to the ICU. Now, Chris feels she has to say it.
My dad may not survive. What would have helped the odds of my dad surviving was a family member.
I checked the Dayton VA's website and found its COVID-19 situation update does allow for a single designated partner or primary caretaker. It does not specifically say whether that person would be allowed for patients who are admitted. Chris said the VA told her that's when the hospital's rule comes in. A rule, despite COVID, she says has to change to help these elderly, sick patients.
I don't know if it's going to be in time for my dad. I don't know. But I'm not going to quit because there's thousands of people like my dad. There's thousands of daughters like me.
I did reach out to a Dayton VA spokesperson tonight, hoping to learn more about their visitation policy. I haven't heard back. I also can tell you I did check the websites for some of our different hospitals in the region. Generally speaking, it appears that a single visitor, a single family member, is allowed for non-COVID hospitalizations when they're actually admitted. However, having looked at these websites, my best advice if you have a loved one going to the hospital would be to just check the website or call the hospital. Things can really change depending on the circumstances.
When Adam Brown opens the door to his Clayton house,
brings back memories.
Those memories,
We heard the winds, and it was really loud.
Are so fresh because he hardly ever steps foot inside. Yes, no furniture here. His family renting elsewhere because their property is still a mess.
It's horrible that we can't get back in our house.
Brown says the May 27th, 2019 twister ripped off a wall.
This is the wall that they said that we can just screw back on.
He says it shifted the whole roof and cracked the foundation.
This whole place was covered in water.
Now, Brown says initially his goal had been to be back on his street in his house by Christmas last year.
But they're not.
It's been pretty rough. It's just one thing after another. They just drag it out as long as they can.
When he says they, he's talking about the insurance company. Brown told me contractors assessed the storm damage at around $150,000. But he says after a lengthy battle with insurance, the company paid just $55,000 for repairs, plus some back pay for temporary housing.
Basically, they just want to screw the wall back on, and it's good to go, yeah.
News Center 7 learned Brown is far from the only 2019 tornado victim still facing major challenges. Do you hear from families that are still struggling right now?
Absolutely.
Laura Mercer leads the Miami Valley group that helps connect tornado victims with resources. She says of the 2,089 cases they handled, 262 are still open. 111 of those are homeowners needing assistance with repairs.
The frustration comes from both, insurance issues and contractor issues, and then just couple that with COVID and the slowdown of people's ability to actually do this kind of work. It's made it very challenging for people to get their homes fixed.
See the cracks in the wall there?
Back at Brown's home, he says the whole situation has snowballed a year and a half later.
We've had to go into our construction money to pay for our rent. Well, we pay for mortgage on this house, too.
He says the family is considering legal action, but if that doesn't work, they could be looking at bankruptcy.
Brings my wife to tears. Me too. It's hard to think about.
In our months-long search to know if Connor Betts' juvenile court records could have possibly stopped him from legally buying the 2 guns he used in the Oregon District mass shooting, WHIO, along with other media outlets, sued for them to be released. Last Thursday, state Supreme Court justices denied that request. That same day, the man you're about to hear from contacted the I-Team wanting to tell us about his family's experience with Betts. He knew some would not want to talk with us, including his own son. He knew some would not like what he has to say, and that many will question the vulgar music that was his connection to Betts. But he now feels compelled to share, hoping information like this will help prevent future mass shootings. As journalists working to understand why something so horrific happened in our community, we felt we had a responsibility to hear what he has to say and to let you hear it too.
Everybody's looking for his past for a reason why he did what he did now, and I don't think it came from his past. I think it came from what happened in the last couple of years from his life. I think he was somebody in pain, somebody that maybe he felt shut out or, for other reasons.
A conclusion Ron Tinkham based on conversations he says he had with his son. In the year leading up to Betts committing the Oregon District mass shooting, Tinkham says his roommate's video, provided to the I-Team on the condition all band members but Betts not be identified, shows what Betts was doing at his Dayton house nearly every week with his son and friends.
And he would come over here just on Sundays when everybody played music. He was a friend, but he was more of an acquaintance that came into the group, So he wasn't like, we didn't call him like he called us. It was that sort of thing.
Tinkham said from his vantage point, no signs anything might be strange.
Nobody saw anything, or nobody thought anything like this was going to happen, or like he was capable of doing anything like this. I wouldn't want somebody in my home that I thought was any threat to us, whatsoever.
But the I-Team's past reporting has revealed there were concerns about Betts long before this. At the time of the shooting, police say Betts was on drugs, which federal affidavits referenced he had addiction issues with since high school. And hours after the Oregon District attack, a classmate told me about a list she says Betts made during his time in the Bellbrook Sugar Creek School District. What was the list that he made?
Of people he wanted to shoot. He had a plan to shoot up the high school.
I-Team reporting last year confirming the Bellbrook High School hit and rape list and also other middle and high school violent incidents.
That's when Connor pulled out a razor knife out of his pocket.
He put his hands around her neck and started choking her.
We haven't heard any of that.
Under Ohio law, Betts' juvenile court records were wiped clean 2 years before the shooting. That's because of his age. He was older than 23. There was no paper trail to possibly prevent the 24-year-old from legally buying 2 guns used that night. Citing student privacy laws last week, Ohio's Supreme Court justices ended WHIO's fight to find out if information in Betts' juvenile records would have revealed that.
Like, everybody's looking about his past. I think it's what happened in the last year of his life.
Tinkham says Betts played heavy metal shows with his son's band and another band, one of them at this downtown Dayton club just 18 days before the Oregon District attack. And it was after that July 17th, 2019 show, Tinkham says Betts' friends told him they did not want to see him anymore. Tinkham says his son later revealed to him Betts' concerning behavior in the months leading up to that night, like when the group of friends took a trip to Chicago.
They said that he brought like a gun or something with him and made comments about using it. So they got a little weary of him when they came back. And he started to do weird things with, he started to ask people for money from the shows, like email them later and ask for money from the shows. And that's what started them getting bothered by his behavior.
Tinkham says ultimately Betts was kicked out of 2 bands in the weeks before the shooting. That's on top of past I-Team reporting revealing Betts and his girlfriend breaking up in the spring.
Him being alienated from his big group of people that he was, always hung around, I think took a little effect on him.
Tinkham also wonders if the extreme version of heavy metal punk music,
pretty extraordinarily
filled with vulgar lyrics they would perform, could have had a very different effect on Betts compared to the rest of the group.
With this kind of music and stuff that goes on, we always joke around with things. We always say things that are just, it's out of context where we're just joking, And we just think that, I don't know, maybe he took this stuff literally, or maybe he thought these things.
Federal investigators admitted as much just days after the Oregon District attack.
We have uncovered evidence throughout the course of our investigation that the shooter was exploring violent ideologies.
It's all these what ifs now.
As for Tinkham, the thought of his group's split with Betts just weeks before the attack haunts him to this day.
Now, we all feel grateful to be around, It's could have easily been any of us.
One more perspective as a community continues its search for answers. Tinkham's son declined participation in this story. Now, in addition to Dayton Police, the FBI tells the I-Team they were also aware of this information. Agents also say they knew about this and what they call other factors that may have played a role in Betts' motive.
Inside Lulabelle in Oakwood,
over here are hand-carved Santas.
Owner Amy Gant works to set up everything just the way she likes.
We're all about that energy of a positive energy, trying to go outside the box like everybody is.
An effort in 2020 that started with a shutdown this spring. At that point, small businesses like Lulabelle had to pivot to online sales. It has not been easy, but 7 months after retailers could reopen, at Lulabelle, things are going pretty well.
I think it's because we have not just sat back and kind of felt sorry for ourselves. We actually have been doing the work.
Gant says being a small business has its advantages over big box stores. It's easier to make changes on the fly.
I don't have to go to a committee to change my hours or change what we do here.
But her success in 2020, unfortunately, is not shared by all small businesses. Recent CBS News reporting ahead of the holiday season revealing small business revenue is down 32% compared to January levels, with 1 in 5 family businesses likely to close if the current situation continues 6 more months.
This pandemic has impacted business, certainly impacted retail, particularly impacted restaurants and bars.
But that impact is not stopping small businesses from doing their best, even as the pandemic surges. Gant doing as much business as safely as she can.
I have several customers that are elderly or immune issues, so I'll stay open late for them. I'll meet them here early.
She hopes a little holiday cheer.
There you are. Thank you.
And their resident furry friend remind customers what they get shopping small this season.
By walking in, and the experience when you walk in should be magical and make you kind of forget a little bit about what's going on out there.